Quentin Tarantino is arguably my favorite director of all time. Just his snappy dialogue and his flair to the movies brings me just so much joy. And in today's video, we're going to be talking and ranking every single Quentin Tarantino film from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Joe Marco of Marco's Movies, helping you learn more, know more, and talk more about movies. On this channel, I rate, review, and rank movies. And if you enjoy this video, please consider clicking that subscribe button and comment down below your favorite and least favorite Quentin Tarantino film of all time. But with that all being said, let's actually start talking Quentin Tarantino tier list style. So, to start off, we're going to be starting off with his most recent movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm just going to do this right now. This was an awesome movie for me. Now let me kind of explain myself. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood brought a new sort of taste and flair to Quentin Tarantino's dialogue, and I thought this film was just awesome. It's by far, in my opinion, the easiest of his films to watch, as the plot isn't really so complex to where you can't follow it, and yet it's told complex based off these characters, but yet making it so basic and such a simple plot. I feel like this movie just follows the kind of template of Quentin Tarantino's films the most. Simple plot, simple story, but great characters, which helps drive the story so much further and makes it so much more fun. And Brad Pitt in this movie is so badass. He's just kind of this, he's the stuntman. And what Quentin Tarantino also does with this movie is he pokes fun at us audience members, as we always look at the big shot actors and we always praise them and their acting, it's so good. And yes, they're so good, but we never look at the behind the scenes stuff, like the director, like the cinematographer, like the stuntman. We never praise them. We always want to talk to that leading actor role, when in reality, the people that are bringing it all together are the people in the background making the films so much fun. And I absolutely had a blast with this movie. What kind of holds it back is, like I said, it's kind of told a little weird. There's a couple little flaws, and there's also a couple weird edits I noticed with the movie. But if I were to show anyone a Quentin Tarantino film, I would probably show him this one. Next is Hateful Eight. Now, Hateful Eight is really hard for me, because when this movie was released, it was released as sort of a series in 4 parts. And I think this would have been better as a series instead of a movie, as this was just a little boring for me. The kind of whodunit Western vibe. First of all, I love the atmosphere of this movie. It's so beautiful. All the snow, Samuel L. Jackson's performance. It's a good movie and a good narrative and a good whodunit story. But I'm going to put this movie in the okay tier. I completely understand if you think this is even his best movie, because it's so much more different than any of his movies. And I own this movie. I've watched this movie twice. It just is so slow paced for me, and I think Quentin Tarantino's flair and style with film needs to be a little more fast paced for it to be enjoyable. I don't know, it's just, this movie dragged. I think you could legitimately cut out 2 to 3 hours from this movie and miss nothing, and the movie would have been even better if you had done that. But it was still an okay movie, and I think if they did trim an hour to an hour and a half of this 3-hour movie, it would go up to okay to maybe even the awesome tier. Next, we have Django Unchained, Quentin Tarantino's first Western, and I gotta do this right now. I keep messing this up, I'm sorry guys. I think Django Unchained is an awesome movie. It almost got up to masterpiece for me, but it's so close to being a masterpiece, but the films that I put on masterpieces are such revolutionary films. And while I do think this movie revolutionized film a little bit, overall there's about 10 to 15 minutes of this movie I probably would have cut out, and it would have made the movie flow a lot better. Specifically the stuff where they're at the dinner table, and kind of before that when you're being introduced to Leo's character. There's just a lot of standing around and stuff that I don't think was needed. I think it helped, but I think it kind of shifted the tone. But this is maybe one of his most fun movies of all time. Obviously, Jamie Foxx's performance is great. Christoph Waltz's is my personal favorite Christoph Waltz performance of all time. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio is rarely the villain in a movie, but in this movie, you literally want this guy to just fall down a cliff, break his ankle, walk to Django, and get just shot in the face. You hate him so much in this movie. And honestly, if Will Smith was casted as Django, I don't think this movie would have been the same. I think it still would have been great, but Jamie Foxx just brings such a cool, dope taste, and obviously his stuff with Collateral, I think, helped with this. And obviously that amazing third act when he escapes, kind of like Bond style. He's getting tortured in his private gonad parts. He escapes and he goes completely berserk in badass mode, and he goes to kill all the freaking people you just wanted to die so badly in the film. And obviously Samuel L. Jackson, I think this might have been his best performance of all time, because usually in the movies he's this cool hipster guy who's kind of like the leader in the background. But in this movie, he really had to act, and he really did a great job. And overall, this is probably the closest of his films to make the masterpiece rating. But to move on to Inglourious Basterds. Inglourious Basterds, I think, is an awesome movie too. I highly, highly enjoyed this movie. Just seeing Quentin Tarantino's kind of overlook and his reimagined way of how World War II ended, it was so realistic and so goofy at the same time that you almost, if I showed this to a really young person, I think they would believe this is how World War II ended. And Christoph Waltz, I think he gave a better performance in Inglourious Basterds than in Django Unchained. I could not imagine anyone else playing that role as sort of like Hitler's just this Nazi, but he's not a Nazi technically. He's a spy who catches Jewish people really easily. And Daniel Bruhl, I don't know how to say his last name, he gives a really underrated performance as this kind of cocky, annoying German soldier who's a war hero and keeps bothering the cinema girl. And Brad Pitt, he's not in this movie a lot. He's probably in this movie for 20 minutes, but he steals the show in every single scene he's in. He's amazing in this movie. And this is one of his longer films. All these films are pretty long. This by far moved faster than I think any of his other films he has. And I think this movie felt like an hour. I had such a great time with this movie. It's going to be a pain in the ass to rank either Django or this over each other. We'll get to that later though. Next, we come on to Death Proof. I'm just gonna get this out of the way. It's an okay movie. I saw it like 3-4 years ago. I need to watch it again. But this movie, it has such a complex plot with great characters. And how Quentin Tarantino, I think when he's at his best, is when he has a simple plot with great characters that make the plot move faster and improve more. That's when I think Tarantino's films are the best. And this movie, an hour of this movie, half of the movie, is towards the plot. When reality in a Tarantino film, we shouldn't even be giving exposition or anything of the plot. We should just have these characters talking, and these characters are sort of the plot of the movie. And that's just when I think Tarantino has his best movies. I need to watch it again though, but still an okay movie. Next, we come on to the Kill Bill franchise. Now, I put these together. These are awesome movies. As you can tell, I really love Quentin Tarantino's movies. Kill Bill 2, I think I enjoy a little bit more. Like a margin more. Mainly, I think these movies both would get my same rating as well as my same letter grade. And they're both just so much fun, and they're so unique, and they're so... If any other director made these movies, they'd be bad. But Tarantino's dialogue, his flair, his style. Obviously, there's some animation in the first one. It's wacky. Uma Thurman gives a great performance. It's just a weird movie, but it's so much fun. It's like an over-the-top... The first one's like an over-the-top samurai martial arts movie. And the second one's like an over-the-top samurai martial arts western movie. And I just like the dialogue a little more in the second one. I think that's where it kind of improves on the first one. It is a little longer. It doesn't move quite as fast. And I think my favorite act of either of these movies is the first act in Kill Bill. Is the third act in Kill Bill. One when Uma Thurman's just going up against a army of samurai assassins and is just whooping all their asses. Such a badass movie character, Beatrix Kiddo. If you watch my top 10 most badass movie characters, I'll leave a link to that in the description. She was in my top 10 most badass movie characters of all time because she was that badass. I love this character and I love these movies. And these are probably my most watched Tarantino films of all time because I just throw these on, enjoy them. They're easy to watch. They're fun. They're amazing. Next, we come on to Jackie Brown, and I think Jackie Brown is an underrated movie. I think it gets way too much hate. Now, I will say this. Quentin Tarantino's... It has everything you want in a Tarantino film. Great dialogue, a decent plot, a fast-moving story. It has all of that, right? It has the wackiness. But where this movie lacks is, I think, the novel Jackie Brown is based off of, mixed with Tarantino's filmmaking, they don't mesh together well. Like I said with Death Proof, this movie's plot is so complicated, and the characters are so complicated because Tarantino's giving his dialogue mixed with this complicated plot. It's too much complicated. It's too much, but it's still so much fun to watch. I still enjoy all the characters in this movie. And I watched this movie a lot more than I think anyone else can say. I've probably given this about 6 or 7 watches, and I really enjoy this movie, as I just love the character of Jackie Brown just outsmarting every single person. It's a lot of fun for me. Now, I'm going to save Pulp Fiction for last, alright? Reservoir Dogs, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. Yes, I said it. I love Reservoir Dogs. A lot of people talk about Pulp Fiction as such a revolutionary movie and such a masterpiece and such a great movie, and it is. There wasn't any movies like this in the early 90s. All the movies before didn't have such snappy dialogue. It didn't have such complicated characters. It didn't have such a whodunit great story. This movie was the first of its kind. It was the first Tarantino film before Pulp Fiction, obviously. And it kicked off his career to a solid ass start. And I just love it's a low budget whodunit story, right? And I think if you gave this movie a high budget, it would just make it go down. But it's not complex. The characters are so much fun. It kind of reminds me of like a Goodfellas kind of movie. And I just love Reservoir Dogs. Now, some days it might just go down to the awesome tier. But I think this movie is a masterpiece, and I think we deserve to give it more credit than it has. And it's probably my most unpopular opinion out of all these, maybe Jackie Brown and Hateful Eight. But I love Reservoir Dogs. It might be actually my most watched Tarantino film. But now we come on to Pulp Fiction. This movie is a masterpiece by far. This movie deserves... You know what? Hold on. Add row above. What should I title this? Tasty Burger. This is I think one of the most revolutionary movies of all time. And just this movie, I think might just be the most revolutionary movie of all time. As before this movie, there wasn't really any big, complicated characters before this. Every single character in this movie is fleshed out. You learn Marcellus is a badass. You learn Jules is a badass. You learn John Travolta's character is a badass who has problems. You learn Jules at the end of this movie is this kind of Christian, religious guy. You learn Uma Thurman's a crackhead whore. You learn Bruce Willis is this boxing fighter that wants to retire and run away with his girlfriend. You learn that the freaking thing in the basement is a crazy ass psycho, as well as the guy upstairs. This movie is amazing. By far, definitely in my top 10, maybe top 5 favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love Pulp Fiction. I could watch Pulp Fiction every day in the rest of my life, and I don't think it would ever get old. And I was 8 when I first watched this movie. And imagine an 8-year-old John Marco in his sister's bedroom watching this movie for the first time, eating my popcorn, sneaking in an energy drink, drinking that to stay up and watch it, and seeing Marcellus get raped in the ass by the main villain from The Mask. Yeah, that did some to me. But I love Pulp Fiction. And as you can see, Tarantino has not made anything below okay. In fact, Hateful Eight and Death Proof are both good movies. They just aren't my favorite, and I don't think they deserve to be on the good level with Jackie Brown. But let's go ahead and rank all these movies now. By far my least favorite Tarantino film is Death Proof. By far. Hateful Eight, good. Jackie Brown, good. Here's where it's going to get hard. So I think I'm going to put Once Upon a Time. So this is going to be like the end, alright? Once Upon a Time is going to be my least favorite movie in the awesome tier. My favorite, it's a fight between Django and Inglourious. Kill Bill's for sure right here. For sure. But these two, man, they are both so close for me. But where I think Django Unchained moves up for me is I would rather watch Django Unchained than Inglourious Basterds simply because of the characters. Because Jamie Foxx's coolness, his amazingness, his badassery. Christoph Waltz, this cool collective, wants to help out the people who are slaves. Leonardo, I hate him in only this movie because he's such a great actor. Samuel, I'm like, come on, are you an idiot? He is owning you. And it's a straight up amazing movie. And it's so close to the masterpiece for me. But I think it's just a tad below it. And Reservoir Dogs, and my favorite of all time goes to Pulp Fiction. So number 1, Pulp Fiction. Number 2, Reservoir Dogs. Number 3, Django. Number 4, Inglourious Basterds. Number 5 is Kill Bill 2. Number 6 is Kill Bill 1. Number 7, Once Upon a Time. Number 8, Jackie. Number 9, Hateful Eight. And number 10, Death Proof. I can watch any of these movies on any day and be fine with it because I love literally all these movies. Even his worst, I still find so much enjoyment from the characters. Yes, the story is too complex, but I still enjoy it. And then Pulp Fiction. I mean, come on. Quentin Tarantino is most likely my favorite director of all time. So there you guys go. There's my ranking of every single Quentin Tarantino movie, ranked from worst to best. I love Quentin Tarantino, and I just can't wait to see what the next thing he does. But if you guys enjoyed this video, like I said, please consider clicking that subscribe button. And make sure you check out below my merch store. I just released my 3 brand new t-shirt designs. But as always, keep watching movies.